No, and I think what he's done is he's taken advantage of a situation where his parents have said, we want this for our kids, and we're going to work hard, we're going to scrape like you won't believe. And
listen, holiday. Yeah, I mean, I do this as well, but I think we need to moderate our language slightly. If you're cutting your cloth in order to send your son to public school, as my parents did, I don't think we can talk about scrimping and scraping.
Well, maybe not scrimping and scraping.
We'd go to a caravan in Brittany when some of the lads I was at school with had houses in Barbados. So I'm aware of what the differences are. But if you're talking to someone who's putting in a 50-hour week in a care home on minimum wage, I don't think we can talk about scrimping and scraping and saving to send people to public school.
What they did was they did the best for their three kids.
Yeah.
Now, I'm no fan of him.
No.
I'm no fan of Truss. But I look at that and I think, OK, while you were in the pharmacy working and while you worked at the takeaway down the road, you interacted with lots and lots of normal working class people. You had to. Because you work in a pharmacy and you deliver takeaways or you work in a takeaway. You were interacting.
I don't know that he worked in the pharmacy, but he did work in the Indian restaurant, yes.
Well, he said last night he worked behind the counter in the pharmacy.
Oh, did he? I thought he just said he did the books for her. But so you're meaning as the customers would be his...
Yeah, he interacted with normal people every day. And then he got an opportunity to go to a good school. And he did well at school, he achieved, and then he went on to a university that gave him interaction with wealthier and more privileged people. But what's happened is, as he's progressed in life and he's married a billionaire, he has no interaction with working class people because he chooses not to.
Yeah.
He chooses not to.
Well, how could he choose to?
Well, he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to step out of his luxury world.
Well, it's not even there, is it? Because you refer back to that interview. It's not. It's long before he became super rich. We're talking about 2001 when he would have been 21. Interviewed for this BBC documentary, Middle Classes, Their Rise and Sprawl. And he said, I have friends who are aristocrats. I have friends who are upper class. I have friends who are working class. And then there's a pause, and he goes, well, not working class. So he made a choice, you're saying, in his teenage years, not to mix with working class people.
By the time he finished university, he had made his choice. And if he'd come across a few working class people at university, which were, let's be honest, that was rare where he went, there weren't that many, he chose to mix with people because he is exceptionally driven and aspirational to become. And he married into the right wealth for him and his family. And he chooses not to mix with the people that he once had contact with. And he doesn't have any contact because he has to borrow a car for a photo opportunity. And he has to embarrass himself. And she tried to gun for him last night to make him look weak.
Yes.
And the fact is, the people that are going to make this decision now, as to both of them, are going to base that on lots of facts. He's not in the real world. His wealth is going to have an impact because the people who vote for these two idiots are going to think to themselves, how can we get the best of a bad deal? Because we're in trouble at the next election and we want to keep the red wall. And we don't want the unions looking like we've just picked a billionaire and put them in power because... And so
she's speaking to that narrative. She said we can't put him in because...
Yes, because he's got natural weaknesses because he's almost set himself up for failure. If he could have turned around and said, I've got lots of working class friends and been in touch with the planet and the electorate, he might have actually not put himself into this big hole and started throwing earth on top of himself.
So it's optics. It's optics. I mean, you're not actually telling me anything that would make him a good or a bad prime minister. You're talking to me exclusively about electability. I
think electability, but I think he's better than Johnson, and I think he's better than Theresa May, and he's a numbers man. So I trust his numbers more than I trust. I trust his numbers more than I trust her. The problem is, I don't think because he's not in touch with the people who are suffering the most. And just to give you a bit of background, I'm a working class.
Well, you can't. We're out of time. You've given me plenty of background already. What then? In a sentence, how does she pull off the trick of looking more in touch with people than he is?
If she got into power, she'd have to look at the best MP in the Tory party with numbers, other than Richie, and put him in the Chancellor.
And that's not what I asked you. How does she pull off the trick of looking more in touch with ordinary people when? Honestly, sometimes it looks like she's not from this planet.
She doesn't have to pull it off, James. She already is more in touch. She's not plausible, but she's female, and she looks like she was bullied last night, and Richie looks like he's got a gold spoon wedged somewhere it shouldn't be.
All right, I hear you. I mean, I don't agree with everything you've said, but today has been an exercise in getting as many different voices and perspectives on the park as possible, because there's no right and wrong answer to any of the questions that I've asked today, partly because, as Steve just alluded to, they're both so blooming awful. But that's what we've been reduced to post-Brexit, with this cabal of Conservatives kept in power by ludicrously biased media. Six years, 4 prime ministers, all from the same party, all sold to you as brilliant, all chased out, and Truss will be next, by their own colleagues when reality finally began to bite. Amelia Cox is here now with your headlines. It's 33 minutes after 12. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, like the man just said. And it's maybe I'm being a bit thick. Actually, it happens, doesn't it? But because you seem to see it a bit more clearly than I do. I mean, there's hypocrisy, immense hypocrisy involved in Liz Truss trying to turn Rishi Sunak's schooling into a negative because she sat in the same cabinets as Cameron and Johnson. The cabinet's run by Cameron and Johnson. She's never previously given any indication of having a problem with public schools, has she? And yet that was the thing she went for, which intrigues me, especially when you see it in conjunction with her attempts to portray her own education in Leeds as having been like Do the Boys Hall in Nicholas Nickleby, also set in Yorkshire, actually, that part of the story, when it was anything but. Anyone who knows Roundhay, and particularly the park in Leeds, will know that it's a beautiful part of the city, one of the most salubrious parts of Leeds. So she's trying to cast us, and then the question of who on earth is she trying to appeal to which the answer became Red Wall Tories. But they're not going to have much of a shout in the leadership election. That's a general election issue. So you got, what, is it 180,000 or so? It's estimated, because we're not allowed to know how many members the Conservative Party actually has, I don't think. I don't think they've told us that. So a couple of you have told me in texts or tweets that there's a lot of UKIP, quite Britain First entryists in that. Well, I mean, they're going to have a problem with Rishi Sunak's ethnicity, a lot of them, if it's true, that they make up a large part of the electorate. But are they likely? I mean, these are people who bend the knee for Boris Johnson and Jacob Rees-Mogg. So why would they have a problem with Rishi Sunak's schooling? This isn't the avenue I thought the conversation was going to go down, actually. I thought it would be slightly broader. But I probably, because, as I did admit at the outset, probably because of my own background, I'm fascinated by how people see these issues. Why is Liz Truss trying to turn Rishi Sunak's schooling into a negative, when the Conservative Party, if you were to remove public school educated men from the Conservative Party, there'd only be her, Priti Patel, and Nadine Dorries left. And Nadine Dorries sent her own children to the public school that I attended. So she'd probably get slung out by proxy. What's the plan? What's Truss up to? 12:35 is the time. And the question that I thought we were going to spend more time addressing is the one I'd remind you of now and encourage you to answer. A genuine question. Do you care? And why do you care? Why do you care? I could never want someone like Rishi Sunak to be Prime Minister because he went to public school and he's got so much money. Why do you care about it? So, look, you've got Rishi Sunak in front of you delivering a speech, you know nothing about him, and you sit there going, oh, that's good. Yeah, I quite like the cut of his jib. Oh, solid point. Yeah, nice one. And then you find out he went to public school. Does that change what you just heard? Does it change the quality of what you've just experienced? That's the bit I don't get. Why do you care? 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. It's 12:36. Jules is in Swindon. Jules, what would you like to say?
Morning, James. Your holiday feels like a long time ago now.
Do you say that? I get about a week and a half before I can't remember whether I went on holiday a month ago or not. But I'm doing all right. Thanks to people like you, Jules. What would you like to say?
Oh, thank you. To answer your most recent reframing of the debate. Right, okay. Honestly, I think I don't care, and I wish that it didn't have to be played out on such a public stage for such a small audience. Yeah. Because, yes, the winner is going to be our new Prime Minister, but ultimately the audience is the voting members of the Tory party. And, you know, you cast your mind back 50, 60, 70 years. The Tory party used to get criticised because the leader would emerge from a smoke-filled room and nobody got to see what the machinations were. And we've gone, in my opinion, too far the other way with this particular leadership election. But that's by the by. I think it matters because of what they don't stand for. That there's, I think Liz Truss is being canny and she's playing to that audience. I think the Tory membership has morphed over time. There's still a lot of those red-trousered, shire, ex-army gentlemen and those types, the cigar smokers, the brandy drinkers. Nigel Farage, basically, if he hadn't left to form his own party, he'd be your classic shire Tory. And I think there's a lot of people like him, and I think a lot of people think along similar lines.
Right.
And I think that there's because generationally as well, and this isn't universally true of all people of that generation.
No, of course.
Inverted commas, baby boomers, but I think a lot of them do think like this, and they grew up at a time when you mentioned this earlier in passing, where you could work very, very hard in relatively modest jobs, and you'd have something to show for it at the end. To give a small family illustration, my aunt died year before last. She was a domestic help. A social carer these days, we would call her. And her late husband was a long-distance lorry driver.
Right.
And they died in suburban... They lived in an ex-council house in suburban Cardiff that they bought with right to buy. Her estate, early last year, was valued at £450,000.
Yeah.
Show me a long-distance lorry driver whose wife works in social care, who's growing up now, who would leave this life having anything at all to show for it except perhaps for some children.
Yeah, no, you make... And here's the thing. I think you're right. This is strong. Because what they would resent is any suggestion at all that they had it easy.
Yes, absolutely. Because they did work hard.
Exactly that, which is why they end up going after millennials wrongly, and they're encouraged to go after millennials because divide and rule, etc., and the only reason you can't afford a house is because you eat so many avocados. But
absolutely, and because home ownership was a totem, it was a measure of how hard you had worked. Yeah. So if you don't have that, you can't have worked hard.
So Liz Truss is portraying Rishi Sunak as someone who had it easy.
Yeah, and herself, she's trying to identify herself.
So it's not about the accumulation.
She's not from that.
It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So she's misrepresenting her own journey, and to a degree she's misrepresenting his, but it is designed to appeal to right-wing boomers, which is going to be the bulk of the membership, which is the electorate in the leadership battle. And
a sizable proportion of the voters that will be supporting them in the next election, but they're not as numerous as they used to be because they just generationally they're dying.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? So she has, I mean, whether by hook or by crook, she has stumbled upon a probably effective little tactic there.
Yeah, it is. That's the important word, I think. It's completely tactical.
Yeah.
If her position was completely well thought through, then and she has that animus against public school education,
which she clearly doesn't. If she does, I mean,
right.
Where does it come from? Because she's moved from the left to the right in the course of her life. So I imagine that her parents probably were opposed to private education, which is why they sent her to round A comprehensive school. Maybe she's never forgiven them for that.
Well, but logically, you would think that she would, given her political position, she would be jumping at the chance to reintroduce the assisted places scheme and not abolish private schooling altogether, which is what a lefty would do, but get as many kids from modest backgrounds as possible through that system. So turn them, she I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she's on record as saying she thinks grammar schools ought to be reintroduced everywhere. So, that whole post-war, grammar schools were brought in by the post-war Labour government, for heaven's sake. Before that, they were, you could only go if you could pay for them. So the whole idea would be that, we will anoint selected members of the working very hard for their whole lives so that they can join the upper echelons of society if they're lucky and if they remember to doff caps and thank their lucky stars that we've deigned to allow them in.
And she's
always been
and of course, and she is in a sense. Well, there's two Tory parties, isn't there? There always has been. There's the party of, I suppose, Harold Macmillan, and then there's the party of Norman Tebbit, and Truss is going after the Norman Tebbit lot with this one, and there's a lot of them, probably more now than there was in Norman Tebbit's heyday. 12:42 is the time. Great stuff, Jules. Thank you. I'm getting there now. There we go. It's as if we're clearing a blockage, which it means you've still got time to answer the other question about, does it personally bother you? I wouldn't want Sunak to be Prime Minister because he's had it so easy in life. That's the phrase. It's not bad, is it, to finally stumble upon the right question to ask at 12:43 in a show that ends at 1 p.m. Does it matter that Rishi Sunak has had it so easy? That's the portrayal that he was trying to challenge last night when he talked about working in his mum's chemist and working as a waiter in the Indian restaurant up the road. The idea that he hasn't had it easy. I think if you've had it relatively easy in life, the least you could do is just admit it. But we all want to feel like we've struggled. We all want to feel like we've progressed, is a better word to use, that we've progressed. And yet some of us were given roller skates, and some of us were given shackles. Deep's in Amersham. Deep, what would you like to say?
Firstly, good morning.
Hello.
Nice sound. Good morning. It's afternoon, isn't it?
It's morning somewhere.
Morning somewhere. Firstly, Rishi, I think it comes down to two things. He must have had it hard in life, being the first generation of an Indian born in this country. I myself is the firstborn, so I know the struggles that Indians actually had. Now,
okay.
Personally, I think he's a fantastic guy. Not because I know him personally. Yeah, I think what he's done as a chancellor. And how he done the figures and managed to do what he did is actually fantastic. Now, I don't think
we're predicted to have the lowest growth in the G7, and we've got the highest tax burden in 70 years.
Yeah, but we needed that, didn't we? I mean, look.
We needed what?
Look, COVID has messed many countries up in the world.
Every country had COVID. We're predicted to have the lowest growth in the whole of the G7, and we've got the highest tax burden that we've had in 70 years.
We're out
he was
of
also
EU.
pro-Brexit, which has smashed 4% off GDP.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, we've left Brexit. The wars happened. There's a combination.
But he voted for Brexit. You can't give him credit for mitigating some of the negative impacts of something that he voted for.
Yeah, but at the end of the day,
don't say at the end of the day again. It drives me potty.
Okay, sorry. But the key thing here, is right. There's a lot of us who voted to remain. There's a lot who voted to leave. I mean, we can go on and on in circles.
No, we can't. We're not going on and on in circles, but you can't praise someone for dealing with the damage that they inflicted on themselves while denying that there was going to be any damage, Deep.
I agree. I agree with you. With you. But here's the situation.
So he hasn't done a brilliant job as Chancellor. That's not an opinion. That's just counting.
No, okay.
All right.
You've got your opinion. I've got my
opinion. It's not an opinion. I just said it's not an opinion. It's counting.
Okay. It's counting. Okay.
Yes.
Let's go to the next day.
All right.
Now, because he understands the economics of the market, he understands where the country actually is at the moment.
Yeah.
Now, majority of the Tory members are actually let's be blunt. They're basically middle-aged, English, etc. And for him to get elected, I'm going to say it's going to be very hard for him to do it. It's not going to come down to education
because of his skin colour.
I think it's going to come down to skin colour.
Yeah.
Let's face it. I think it's going to come down to his skin colour. It's not going to come down to he can do the better job. It's going to come down to skin.
There's only one way you can overcome your ethnicity in the face of a potentially racist electorate, and that is to appeal to their racism by telling them that there's no such thing as racism, or to be absolutely appalling in your attitude to refugees. And when he's suggested that he would continue with the Rwandan debacle, he hasn't quite seemed as if his heart is in it, has he?
But the problem is we have got a problem with refugees, and how do we tackle that? I mean, there's nothing out there to say we can stop them. We've given money to the French.
I'll tell you what, why don't we take in the same amount as the French? That would fix it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but French is about 10 times bigger than us. Let's look at it that way.
Not in terms of the population, though.
No, it doesn't matter about the population.
Of course it matters about the population. A country is built to accommodate people. It doesn't matter how many vineyards you've got, mate, if you're looking for places to live.
Yeah, but vineyards need workers, don't they?
Yes,
I mean, we're in the UK. We haven't got that much of vineyards. We haven't got that many crops that we need, people to
I wasn't bringing that in as an area of conversation that I expected you to pursue. We're not comparing the agricultural states of France and England. We're merely pointing out that if you want to appeal to racists, you've got to be vile about refugees.
I fully agree with you, sir.
I know, you have to. That's not an opinion, it's counting. It's 12:47. Boris Johnson has written to the liaison committee about that meeting with the former KGB agent Alexander Lebedev when he was Foreign Secretary. I'll read you what he's written and see if you can spot the problem. In April 2018, I attended a social event at the house of Evgeny Lebedev in Italy. In the interest of transparency, I declared the overnight stay and the ministerial returns, which can be found on gov.uk. At this social event, I also met Evgeny Lebedev's father. This was not a formal meeting, nor something that was pre-arranged. Right, that is a KGB agent that we're talking about. A KGB agent. So notice the language here. It's really important. I declared the overnight stay and the ministerial returns, which can be found on gov.uk. He didn't declare. It only came out, I think Carol Cadwallader inevitably got to this a couple of years ago, but nobody was paying any attention. It came out in select committee when he let it slip, I think, almost by accident. So it's the meeting with Evgeny Lebedev that is the problem, not the meeting with his son or the fact that he was in the son's castle in Italy. He continues, officials were aware in advance that I was attending the social event. Contrary to some reports, my visit was in line with established security protocols under successive foreign secretaries. I mean, who here wouldn't trust Boris Johnson's word? Boris Johnson says something's true, something's kosher. Who here wouldn't trust him on that? Seriously. When has Boris Johnson ever lied to you? Yeah. It would not have been normal practice for civil servants or security staff to have accompanied me to such a private social occasion. I did not take ministerial papers with me. I don't believe him. Why don't I believe him? Because I don't think he's ever knowingly told the truth in his life. If a minister meets an external organisation or individual and finds themselves discussing official business without an official present, for example at a social occasion, any significant content should be passed back to the department after the event. Here's the bit, here's the clincher. That was not necessary in this case. As far as I am aware, no government business was discussed. Okay. Well, to paraphrase Mrs. Merton, what do you think first attracted a former KGB agent to British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson? Do you think he was invited because of his sparkling Shakespeare anecdotes, or his witty Churchillian repartee, or because he was Foreign Secretary? As far as I am aware, no government business was discussed. As far as I am aware, no government business was discussed. You're at a party with a KGB agent and you're the Foreign Secretary. God, the day when I accidentally swear on this programme is inching ever closer. For fig's sake. What's he going to try and pull off next? Absolutely nothing to see here. I attended a party with a KGB agent who has subsequently been sanctioned by Canada for being a key part of Vladimir Putin's inner circle. And absolutely nothing to talk about. I was invited because of my magic tricks. I was invited to do my make the walnut disappear trick. Absolutely nothing to do with my role as a senior British politician. I was invited because they were short of a tenor for singing London's Burning or My Old Man's a Dustman. Why was Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson invited to a party with a KGB agent? Well, it's nothing to do with politics. No, as far as I'm aware, no government business was discussed. I said an hour ago it was a bad memory. May have been a tad optimistic. Graham's in Manchester. Back to the other two, Truss and Sunak. What's going on, Graham?
I know where I'd stick the walnut, but never mind.
You behave yourself.
Yeah, I think they both preach into the same congregation, but
yes,
for different reasons.
Yeah, I do now. Go on.
He knows that he's got at a disadvantage because he's not white.
Right.
She knows that she's at a disadvantage because she's not as well heeled as him.
Yes.
Well, her advantage is that she already thinks she's going to be the one that's going to be elected. He doesn't think that. She's thinking of the general election He isn't. He's fighting for his life.
That's an interesting point. So yeah, that again, that's the final piece of the jigsaw, possibly, Graham, isn't it? Because an earlier criticism was that I'm speaking as if this was a general election, whereas in fact it's a leadership election. But Liz Truss is actually already focusing on the broader electorate because she knows that once she got over the parliamentary selection process, she pretty much has it in the bag with the membership. Do you know why she has it in the bag with the membership?
Because all the opinion polls tell us so.
Yeah, but before that's chicken and egg. Why does she have the support? Because I don't think people realise this.
Why does she think?
No,
because she's got people who've got the ears to the ground.
No, not that. No, not that.
Sorry,
the reason why the membership like her.
The membership like her because she's dressing up like Maggie Thatcher now.
It's simpler. It's even simpler than that.
Mrs. Gromit thinks she's got it in the bag.
It's even simpler than that. It's because she pulled this thing off brilliantly while none of us were really paying attention. We were all laughing at her for pork markets and that thing she said about cheese. Did we ever get that clip of the thing that she said about cheese that I asked for 2 hours ago? Did we ever get that? We were all laughing at her, but the Tory membership, who was sort of mainlining the Daily Express every morning, they honestly believe that these deals she rolled over count as like Brexit victories and Brexit benefits. So all of the nonsense about signing this and signing the other and doing this, she even touched on it last night. Everyone ignored it because everyone sensible knew that it was cobblers. But of course, everyone insensible, which is your average Brexit voter, they actually think she's pulled some stuff off. And that's why they all like her. So this is, I mean, everyone says, I wish we could stop talking about Brexit. We're about to get another Prime Minister whose popularity in the Conservative Party hinges entirely upon her lies about Brexit being a good idea and Brexit being successful.
But so do his. You know, I mean, last night he gave Boris Johnson 10 out of 10. She gave him 7 out of 10.
I know. And that's why...
as if Brexit's done, as if with people in Northern Ireland are not going to be worse off in the next couple of years.
She's solved all that. She said she'd solved all that. She's solved all that. And of course, the lesson she learns when she says, I've just rolled over a deal, it's marginally worse than what we had in the European Union, but she never says that bit. She says, it's brilliant. Brexit. Yee. So she's realised, like Ricky Gervais in The Invention of Lying, she's realised she can say whatever she wants. People will lap it up. So last night she came pretty close to claiming that she'd already fixed Northern Ireland. Anyway, here's the clip.
We import 2/3 of our cheese. That is a disgrace.
One day, Sheila Fogarty is looking at me askance. One day, I'm going to play that for 3 hours. In fact, if she's elected Prime Minister, or when she becomes Prime Minister, I might just play that for 3 hours straight. I mean,
just that bit or the whole speech?
No, just that bit.
Play the whole speech. It's a corker.
Is it? Does it get worse?
Yeah.
Just once more with feeling, please, Keith.
We import 2/3 of our cheese. That is a disgrace.
I just don't know what to say. I'm going to go home and listen to the whole thing now. Actually, I can't. I'm interviewing Ian McEwan this afternoon. Just be very excited.
The visuals help.
I know they do because she's proper cross. And you can see it's when she pauses for the applause, and you can hear people go, well, we're obviously meant to clap now because she's paused. What are we clapping now? Is it a disgrace that we import so much cheese, or is it a disgrace that we don't import more cheese? I don't actually know what it is. What cheese-related anger am I supposed to be articulating by applauding at this point? But I'm obviously expected to applaud, and so I will. Oh, Lord, that's your next Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, barring some utterly unforeseeable or indeed unforeseen event. And that's it from me for another day. I will be back tomorrow morning at 10, and we'll probably have to talk about something else. I mean, I got 2 weeks out of this. I got a 2 weeks stay of execution where I didn't have to talk about the Conservative leadership election at all. And then last night, 10 minutes into the debate, back from holiday for less than a week, back from holiday for 4 days, and I found myself getting interested. Oh, this is interesting. Oh, politics. It's horrible. Here's Sheila.
I went to bed.
Yeah, I wish I had. I nearly said I should have joined you then.
Should have joined me. I wouldn't have minded. It's a bit hot, but and we had the discussion, didn't we, on Twitter as to whether I'd cover it at all, and the answer is I'm not going to.
Good for you.
Not really. A little bit of it might creep in because we are talking about political matters, but we'll see. 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 But we'll see.